Hail and well met basement dwellers and grass touchers. You know, tabletop role playing games, those games where we roleplay on the tabletop. Well, TTRPGs have lately been away from real tables, with more people than ever playing online using virtual tabletops and play by post. And those are still great ways to experience the tabletop role-playing hobby with D&D and other games like it. I've done a fair share of online games through Roll20 and Discord, but the way I learned and the way I still play most of my games is at the classic tabletop. Despite all the ways online can have an edge over offline play, folks always bring up to me the intangible true feeling that offline play can bring. How it just feels better, man. For this video, I want to try to pinpoint those typically intangible aspects and why offline play might provide more green flags for your group. I will also be providing some ways that you as a player can contribute with your own personal green flags. I'm also excited to say that this video is a collaboration. Blurty Disposition is a talented and respected creator, and if you want more TTRPG advice and analysis after this video, you should check out the companion piece for online green flags and consider subscribing to his channel. Green flag number 1. Maps and minis are cool. The actual, physical space you are playing in is a major draw for offline play. Just look at the amazing sets put together on Dimension 20. Okay, now look at your table and realize that while a Dimension 20 set is a lofty goal, you can still spice up your dungeon decor with lighting and candles, a good GM screen, and of course, maps and minis. There are a ton of products out there, but always remember to keep your own budget in mind when hosting the gang. It's the game that matters, all the bells and whistles just help with the vibes. For some essential gear though, you can't go wrong with a classic vinyl reversible grid map by ChessX. Dungeon Craft also makes economic packs of terrain in unique packages like Castles and Keeps or Hell and High Water. It's easy to go off the deep end with minis, so I advise exploring options like cardstock and stand-up minis where they are available. These options are much cheaper, much easier to carry, and don't require painting. Gear aside, it's always nice to get the gang together with some snacks and drinks. You may have heard of beer and pretzel D&D being synonymous with murder hoboing, but hey, beer, pretzels, and some just for fun dice action with your friends is not a bad thing in my book. The host space is important, and it doesn't always have to be provided solely by the GM. As a player, you can volunteer to host or find a local game store space, allowing your GM to focus more on the story and the game. Contribute to the table's library of books. In my first 5e game, the DM started a pun jar for every time one of us players said a bad D&D pun. Well, we were quite punny. Punny enough to help buy our DM 2 new adventure books so we could keep playing together. You can do the same with maps and minis. A random booster box of minis or a tactical grid map, both around $20, makes for a great thank you gift for your DM that contributes to the table you're playing at. And of course, chip in for the chips and drinks. You can rotate who the snack czar is each week, or go potluck and have everyone bring something small. Just remember to check in on dietary restrictions and alcohol comfort levels. My pro games switch back from online to offline. Plenty of clients mention their relief because it just wasn't the same playing on Roll20. This goes back to the intangible advantages of group play, but I think it has something to do with a creative group space where ideas can flow more freely. You can get help from others improvising or writing your character intro. Be sure to pay attention when other people are giving their character intros so that you can find common threads or even dramatic contrasts between your character and theirs. The GM is not the only arbiter of your game's plot. Your character choices should affect the game world, and your out-of-game contributions should matter too. One way to do this for 5e D&D is to give a physical inspiration token for good play, and then cash that token in for a plot twist. Okay, let's talk an example because this is a little out there. Let's say you're about to start up a typical city shopping session. You start describing some mundane shops that are around, then one player says they want a renowned arcane weaponsmith to be in town. You ask them to cash in their story point, and it is so. Maybe the next player uses their story point and adds that the same weaponsmith is actually their estranged uncle, and he may be able to cut them a deal at the price of a family quest. Boom. Instant story with player investment, and you didn't even have to prep. If you're looking for a more collaborative D&D game or a rule to incorporate in another TTRPG, give a look at page 269 in the Dungeon Master's Guide. The offline space is cool to play in, especially when you get to move around pieces on a big world map. But what if your players got to contribute to that world map? Try leaving blank spaces for your players to fill in with their backstory, world building, and unique ideas. There's even a game all about making your own world together called The Quiet Year that I highly recommend. Being able to affect the world on a large scale by physically applying pen to paper is just one more way to keep your offline game dynamic. And you know what? You don't need all the fanciest gear or even the unfancy essentials. Theater of the mind allows for your imagination to flourish in the offline space. Green flag number 3 is easy pickup play. Most of us play tabletop role-playing games at somebody's house, but it's not the only way to play offline. A public table at a local game store or convention opens up the possibilities for meeting new people and playing a different kind of game. I was actually offered my professional DM job after hosting free D&D Learn to Play sessions over Meetup. These were simple sessions for me to put together, and I got to welcome folks into the hobby who otherwise wouldn't have been able to get their foot in the door. Yes, there are online Learn to Plays too, but I've found that most of the time is spent figuring out the tech rather than learning what the game is actually about. Offline play lets down that barrier to entry. There's also tournament play at conventions and standardized play like Pathfinder Society or D&D Adventure League. Check in with your local game store or meetup group to see what's happening near you. When hosting a public game, your focus might need to shift from your typical basement game. Remember to practice your public speaking voice, be welcoming to anyone who's looking to play, and being respectful, of course. Use those insight checks and focus on the player experience. And if you're running a published adventure, take ownership of it and allow for your own personal flavor and the actions of your players to change things to make a unique adventure. Green flag number 4 for offline play is smooth engagement. No matter what kind of table you're at, it's nice to feel like you're a part of the group's storytelling experience. Showing that you're engaged and having a good time is a lot easier to do when you're face to face. Whether you're a player or a GM, you can ask questions about someone else's character or world building, respond to someone's personal roleplay when they approach you in character. Some of the best TTRPG moments happen away from the main plot in the BBEG. If someone makes a good tactical decision in combat or a bold statement in a social situation, let them know how cool it was. This encouragement can help players and the GM feel more invested. Also, for players, encourage your GM. Tell them that their decision to include this encounter, NPC, or game-specific table was awesome, because appreciation goes a long way. You can always show your appreciation non-verbally too. When I'm on a long description as a DM, it's validating to look across the table and see head nods, a thumbs up, or of course, demon horns, to let me know the players are into it. Speaking of what's awesome, I'm going to tag in Blurty Disposition. Take it away, Blurty.
Thank you again, TrueSight, for the awesome invite. But enough of the platitudes. Let's get on to step number 5. Rewarding team play. Inspiration is a major tool for D&D and other tabletop role-playing games. You can't have a game session, a one-shot, or a campaign without some level of inspiration, and the physical reminder is a great tool in its own right. In fact, a great part of offline play is that when you reward a player or game master for great and creative play, that reaction, or lack of reaction, is felt immediately. You can tell from facial expression and posture, amongst other physical factors, that this is something meaningful to the player or GM. Rewarding team play also means paying that forward to other players and or the GM. For example, there's an immediate intimacy in creative play. This energy can spark to other players and help the already positive vibe at the table increase. So that positive energy goes to more people and subsequently makes your game more fun, assumedly. As a DM, try to lean back when you see that cross-table interaction occurring. Let the players be players. Let those players have their player moments, uninterrupted by your next narration. As I like to say, let the players play. And speaking of players, look for opportunities for combo moves, help actions, or whatever other team abilities that are offered in your TTRPG you should definitely try to emphasize. Here's a good example. I was playing DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics, as a V Cleric. Note, I didn't give them a name. I wanted to aid the rogue in hiding away from a slime, so I give them some oil to blow up the slime. In real life, I say, hey, that was great synergy. It was clear they appreciated that synergy and we both were happy with the results. Well, aside from the big mess in game. What I'm trying to get at is that by rewarding team play, you're able to create a conducive and fun environment that you can clearly see from just being in this space, and that energy is infectious. Number 6, Rules Helpers. These are guides and documents that help dictate and reaffirm rules, which are vital and helpful tools in your offline RPG. As you might know, in an online game, when players and GMs are stuck at a ruling, there is a lot of ease in looking up the rules, especially for 5e. However, this can and has in the past bogged down my game, and I'm sure it's bogged down your game. Offline games, it is a bit more okay, and I've even seen encouraged to work within your means. So, this looks like GMs making judgment calls in a game and handing out aids rather than bogging down the game with rules searching for a good 30 minutes. Because the internet can and is addicting. Trust me, I spend a lot of time scrolling through social media sometimes. And as a GM who's ran several online games like Call of Cthulhu, Dungeons & Dragons, and sci-fi RPGs, it gets a bit difficult to wrap your head around a lot of the rulings, and you can get bogged down on making a rule when you just can easily look it up. But in offline games, if you are a GM that's having trouble, then rather than worrying about looking it up, it's best that you have the right tools to resolve these issues. For example, it's best to carry around tables and resources such as names, locations, and random encounters, especially if the game calls for it. Then you won't need to look up stuff, and your game won't need to bog down unless the ruling says issue is particularly serious. For example, a character death happens, or you might trigger a player, or there is a very serious issue going on in your TTRPG specific to the mechanics and it needs to be resolved immediately. But I might have spoken a little bit too much on this topic. I think TrueSight wants to finish off this conversation in style. Take it away, TrueSight.
There's no one true way to play your chosen TTRPG with your chosen group. The next time you're looking to start an offline game, remember to seek out cool maps and minis and other physical elements, an open creative space where everyone can share ideas, easy pickup play at conventions or your local game store, smooth engagement with face-to-face action and drama. Remember that rewarding team play is easier when you can high-five each other, and prepare your rules helpers ahead of time so you don't get bogged down in rules court. Thank you all for listening, and thank you Blurdy for your collaboration. Everyone remember to check out this video's companion piece on his channel if you haven't already. That's all I got. Have a Nat 20 day. Bye bye.